In this chapter 1, Deborah Wisneski takes up the topic of our field's history around curriculum. Her approach is critical as she relates stories that are not a part of our collective narrative, operating from an understanding that history shapes the present and impacts the field's identity. She offers alternative perspectives on who we as early childhood professionals are and those who might be. Currently, in the U.S., teachers' voices are the voices of silent knowing that can help problematize and expand what we know about early childhood curriculum. In searching for stories of teachers' voices in the American history, Deborah attempts to follow the questions Canella suggests they asked using Foucaultian postmodern perspectives such as what knowledge of teachers have been excluded or disqualified? Whose thoughts about curriculum and teachers have been hidden? By exploring these voices, perhaps early childhood educators may rediscover a part of their history that helps them rethink and reshape their identities as teachers and curriculum planners, designers, and innovation. A condensed and incomplete history, it is a brief review of ACE texts and textbooks. The researchers' concern was that future early childhood teachers lacked the historical knowledge of the field that was necessary to develop a professional identity. While professional organizations may occasionally sponsor a history session at annual conferences or graduate programs may provide a course examining early childhood education history. The topic is most commonly approached in undergraduate introduction course textbooks. Unfortunately, textbooks provide a condensed and mainstream view of the field which potentially the knowledge of our history. Generally, our history is presented within three areas. First, major historic figures, the heroes and heroines, such as Caroline Pratt and John Dewey. Second is popular curricular models of theories such as Maria Montessori or Jean Piaget. And third and last, it is the political, public, or governmental programs such as Head Start. The result of the way in which this information is presented may result in perception of how early childhood educators have developed and interacted with curriculum. As presented, it seems we have a few leaders such as Montessori, Dewey, or Piaget presented as the creators and keepers of curricular ideas, and that these ideas and or curricular are disseminated outward to teachers who are positioned as a purveyors or implementers of this curricula. So what other stories could be told about early childhood education and curriculum that might not have been told to or have been remained silent? What counter-narratives may exist that can expand our knowledge? This will share the following brief examples of less familiar stories that are not often shared with undergraduate early childhood educators, as noted by their absence in standard introductory texts regarding ECE, but that offer intriguing images of those who have been influenced early child education and curriculum. Women in ECE, reformers, suffragists, and radicals. Many of the founding mothers of early child education were hardly the gentle matrons handled with small children, offering quiet songs and warm cookies. Rather, these women were deeply involved with the civil rights issues of their times and were advocates for the rights of all. One example of such a teacher is Ella Victoria Dobbs. Dobbs recognized that as children use their hands to make artistic and functional pieces, through manual works, they learned a great deal about character and content knowledge across disciplines. Dobbs further explored children's hands-on work as curriculum by employing scientific method, explored children as a research with practicing teachers, who implemented the hands-on curriculum and documented the children's learning. Dobbs not only was an innovator of curriculum and instruction, she also was a leader within the professions. In 1910, she founded the Women's Honor Society. She was heavily involved in the women's suffrage movement. She recognized also the necessity for teachers' voices to be heard in political matters to support classrooms, and urged teachers to educate the public about the matters of methodology and educational progress. Ella Victoria Dobbs was outstanding for her broader interpretation of the role of teacher. First, the teacher should be an experiment, one who by his scientific approach to the problems of education could himself contribute to the greater knowledge of children and improve methods of teaching. Second, the teacher is a citizen, including woman teacher, and must exercise the responsibilities of citizenship, attacking all forces inimical to a good life and identifying with those constructively working for a better society. Upon further exploration of other leaders in early childhood education, it's clear that Dobbs was not only early childhood educator who worked for civil rights in the U.S. Many early child educators were peace activists and civil rights activists like Jane Addams and Florence Kelley. One interesting example of an early teacher of color who played a strong role in U.S. history is Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm addressed curriculum in her nursery school classroom educators' role in society, and those reimagined how we would address curriculum from that new perspective. Minority representation and leadership in EZA, the really hidden history of Head Start, in the field of early childhood curriculum rarely is leadership for minority communities presented as affecting education and curriculum. However, that is not to say that minority communities have had little impact in the field. One example is the influence of the Texas Little Schools L400, a preschool program first started by the League of United Latin American Citizens, or we will call it LULAC, or LULAC, which became the inspiration for the federal Head Start program. The history of LULAC, or LULAC, the Little Schools, and Head Start can provide us lesson for today regarding early child education. The story helps demonstrate how the field of early child education shares a history with bilingual education. Perhaps our understanding of early child bilingual curriculum would be enhanced if we explored this relationship more deeply. A teacher's articulation of new humanist philosophy through early childhood curriculum, stories of teachers and community groups who have an impact of curriculum in early child education should not be relegated to the distant past either. Indeed, there are teachers today who are making differences in developing and implementing new curriculum. Teacher is Nieti Gagnon. Nieti was raised in Chicago, Illinois, but when she was 21 years old, she went to India to be trained as a Ujjayi nun in the service organization Amanda Marga. Once Nieti received her training as a junior Ujjayi nun, she learned to teach meditation and live in several countries in the Far East. Nieti specifically explained how play, storytelling, the arts, and yoga can be used to teach children from a new humanist perspective, and how more familiar learning theories and teaching practices such as Vygotskian theory intersect with new humanist ideals to young children and design curriculum books for their fellow teachers to use. Nieti's development of the curriculum for early childhood demonstrates the characteristics that new humanists expect teachers to possess: strength of character, righteousness, sense of social service, leadership capacity, and the rights to form policy. In conclusion, this inclusion is important, first, as contributions from any cultures and ethnicities are presented as part of our history. More women and men from minority groups will see an image of themselves in the field investment in a profession that is currently heavily dominated by white members. And second, when diverse ideas of early child curriculum are presented, we see a complex and thoughtful understanding of curriculum full of continuous issues in the lives of teachers and children rather than a monolithic determined best practices approach. When we pay attention to the stories of teachers' lives as part of our curricular history, we are able to see how curriculum is part of the political and social historic context.